There are so few people voting in LA that there are now people talking about paying people to vote and giving them prizes to vote. LA Times had an interesting piece on this. Let's look at a quote. Maybe it's $25,000, maybe it's $50,000. That's where the pilot program comes in, to figure out what number and amount of prizes would actually get people to the voting box. That's Nathan Hochman, the Los Angeles Ethics Commission president. So yeah, voting has been going precipitously down in Los Angeles. Our current mayor in Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, got 12% of the eligible voters actually voted for him. That means 12% of the people walking around in LA actually voted for the guy that's running the show. Let's look at some numbers on how the voting has fallen off. So in 1969, in the mayoral campaign, 76% of the eligible voters voted. That's pretty decent for a democracy. I wish we could get that in our presidential voting. Then in a March 2009 primary for mayor, 17.9% voted. And then June 2013, we had a mayoral runoff, which is what Eric Garcetti won. 23.3% of the eligible voters voted for it. He got around 51% or something, so 12% of the people in LA voted for this guy. So voting is a major problem. I have long said the voting, election day should be a national holiday every year. People have to go to work. Let's remove that from the equation. Let's get people voting. I think that would be one simple way of fixing this. But paying people and prizes, is this just a big game show now? Is America just a big old game show, Lissette?
It's unfortunate that we need, a game show to incentivize us to vote, but it's somewhat understandable, Dave. I think that we're so disillusioned with the system that we don't think our vote matters. It kind of doesn't, right? We know that when we have corporations that can give unlimited donations to political candidates, our vote going to be pretty insignificant. Now, in terms of giving people money to vote, I find it absolutely ridiculous, but I think it's some out-of-the-box thinking, and it might get some people out to the voting polls. Now, who's going to go to the voting polls, right? That's a question that I would ask. If you're offering, say, $25,000, some people might think, oh, I could really use that money. I'm going to go and vote. Whereas others might think $25,000 is not going to make a difference. Right. Yet others who are educated on the statistics are going to do the math and be like, it's not really going to matter.
Right. So it literally would be like lotto. They're not just handing out 25 grand to go vote.
Exactly. So I think you would have a very specific portion of the population showing up to the polls, and that might actually influence the way we vote and also the results of the election. So that I think would be interesting.
And then it could just backfire. You could have so many people show up that the lines are longer and now people don't want to wait until more people leave. Like, this could just be a shit show.
That would be a good problem to have, though.
How sad is the state of democracy in general? Like, when you see these things about the voting, you know what I mean? Like, we're all in the political world, the news world. Like, we talk about this stuff all the time. Obviously, Lissette, the money and politics thing is big for all the stuff that we do around here. But how just sad is just the general, like, people just don't vote. They just don't believe it works.
They don't believe it works.
So it's not about money. It's like about belief.
Yeah, and it's like, even if you do vote, even if the person you voted for gets into office, you still feel like you're not going to get the result you want. So why even bother? But it is particularly sad, especially as a Black woman, because it wasn't that long ago when we couldn't vote. And so a lot of times, and we had to fight so hard to get the right to vote. So it's very upsetting to know that it's trivialized, and it's just that privilege is just like, I don't care anymore. People literally died for us to be able to vote, and to know that people aren't going to the polls because they don't feel like it, I can't even believe it.
Yeah, how much of this is education, though? Because I feel like when there's a presidential election, we always get the uptick in numbers. So we get something like 60%, or I think Obama's first go around, it was really good, like 70%. Don't quote me on that exactly. But then in the off years, it's ridiculous. I mean, we literally are getting like 20% and something like that. So this year, we're in an off year. 2014 is an off year, so we're going to be able to vote for Congress. And the turnout's going to be terrible, despite the fact that they have like a 7% approval rating. So this is really just about education, right?
It's education, and it's almost the exposure. Like a lot of people that I know don't even realize it's voting day.
Yeah.
And so when it's the presidency, there's a commercial every 5 seconds. But a lot of times you don't get the information, which is the education. You don't understand who your options are. You don't understand all of the proposals that you're voting on. And people aren't taking the time to do the research and really read through all of the rigmarole because it comes down to the fact that they just don't think it matters.
Yeah, so for the money, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the money in politics thing, do they just have a vested interest in not having people vote, and that's really what's going on here?
I think they have a vested interest in not having certain people vote, and so
Yeah.
they're trying to make sure that the people that are going to vote in their favor vote, and those who don't. And this is why when you mention education, I don't necessarily think it's all about education. I think the biggest contributing factor here is awareness, particularly through media, as you alluded to, Vanessa, right? So when we get commercials and propaganda, I think that's what really moves the needle. When we instill fear that if we don't vote for a particular candidate, that other candidate will leave us jobless and we'll lose our homes. Like this type of misinformation is, I think, what really pushes people to vote. So education definitely has a part in it, but when people are really educated, I would argue if some say, forget the system, I'm not part of it, I'm leaving the US, or why vote if it doesn't matter?
Well said. I'm pretty sure if you just gave out PS4s, people would start voting in massive record numbers.